Are you looking for better health but feel a little overwhelmed with it all, thinking there might be something missing? Maybe you're looking for action steps to take that get to the real root of the issue and actually move the needle in your health. Here on the Cornerstone Integrative Healing Podcast, we will share the link between our physical, emotional, and spiritual health, all while pointing you to the one and only true healer, Jesus. I'm Kari, Coody, your co-host. As a pharmacist turned integrative health practitioner, I spent 20 years in the traditional healthcare world, and it was definitely long enough to know there's a huge need for preventative healthcare and holistic healing. I'm excited to have conversations around these topics with my co-host and friend, Jenn.
Hey, I'm Jenn Patriarca. God gave me this desire to help others with natural healing a long time ago. With more than 20 years of experience in the functional nutrition field, God decided it was time to join forces. Kari and I are colleagues turned faithful partners in this mission God has put on our hearts. A mission for true healing, one that encompasses an integrative approach. With Jesus taking the lead, our aim is to point you toward Him as we help you peel back the layers. Through conversations, you can expect straightforward information on holistic health topics that include physical, emotional, and spiritual action steps that will create real change in your health, and honest conversations around the ups and downs that can come with healing. It's time to have joy in your life again and the energy to do all that God has called you to. Be sure to subscribe for new episodes every Monday.
Hey everyone, it's Kari here. I've got Jenn with me, and we are excited to welcome you back into the podcast. We are finishing up our series on stories of healing with a special episode today, just sharing our experience with how overwhelm plays into physical health, mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, and how it truly is healing to just take note of what overwhelms us and what kind of is the driver to the stressors that we might feel every day in all of those areas. And I think that this is very relatable. I think women definitely can feel very overwhelmed with all the things that they need to kind of take care of as wives and moms and, at work and things like that. And so I hope this is encouraging to and relatable, right? Like we all struggle with these things. However, if you're looking for healing, right, we're talking about healing in this series. I think this is a big part of it. So we kind of wanted to have a conversation around that. And also stick around towards the end. We're going to share something fun that is coming up very soon.
Yes. I think this is such an important topic because if you've listened to the stories, especially the last one with Kendra, a big part of her healing was noticing the busyness, and the slowing down is really, I think, there was a few tweaks in the physical stuff, but I think the slowing down, or her at least being aware of the slowing down, was just a huge piece to getting her body to kind of catch up and heal. And you cannot heal if you're in a stress response. You just can't. That's not where we heal. And so we just wanted to make this a priority. We've talked about it before, but we just wanted to, talk about a couple things that maybe we do. I remember talking about with Kari taking a month off. She suggested that I take a month off. This was after, I had just quit my job, and I was thinking, I don't need to take a month off. And it was the best thing that I ever did. So it really helped me to evaluate what I wanted to do versus what I really needed to do. And I think that's an important distinction, because a lot of women think they need to do things they really might not need to do. And one of the things that I gained from, and I know this isn't possible for everybody, so take it for what it's worth, was, slow mornings have just become sort of an obsession for me. Like, I do not want to be rushed in the morning. I want to have my time to eat breakfast. I want to have my time to pray, to go for a walk. Now, does that happen every single day? Of course not. And for some of you, that might not be possible. So maybe it's a slow afternoon, right? Maybe, from 2:30 to 4:30 is when your slow time is. And that's when you pray and take your downtime. But it's just important, if you're listening and you're seeking healing or health changes, that you're not operating from a state of overwhelm.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think there's so many levels to this. It's like sometimes when we don't really even have much that we have to do. It's like we just, in our mind, we have overwhelm, which is, it's
Yeah.
like,
Yes.
it doesn't seem like it would make that big of a difference, but it truly does. Because again, if you take it back to that stress state, as Jenn said, like our body can't distinguish between an actual threat and one that we think is a threat or doesn't make us feel safe or whatever. And
Right.
so that's why there's so many levels to this. If you take it back to physical things you might be feeling and how the nervous system plays a part in that, you do really have to think about all of the ways that you might feel overwhelmed or stressed or not safe or whatnot.
Right. Right. And if you look at some of the holistic practitioners out there, some of them I follow on Instagram, and I hear a lot of them talking about digestive issues. And most of them talk about not anything having to deal with digestion, but focusing on the nervous system. If you're stressed, if you're overwhelmed, if you have anxiety, you cannot heal your gut. And it goes back to the gut-brain axis. Your brain and your gut are constantly communicating. Your gut is the second brain. And so if it's stressed, you're not going to produce the neurotransmitters like serotonin and, other things that help keep you focused throughout the day. It was really important for me personally. The way that I handled stress was prioritize where God wanted me. And I trip up, I feel like the last 2 weeks, to be quite honest, has been literally, forgive my, description, but a shit show because I got lost in I need to do this and I need to do that. And I just got busy, and then you get caught up in the busyness. Right. Yeah. And so I had to go back to step one was, okay, what does God want me to do today? Literally minute by minute.
Definitely.
And yeah, we're laughing because Kari's been with me
for sure. It just makes me think how it's like maybe you're hearing this and you're like, yeah, but you don't know my life. Like I have all
right.
of these things to do. I get it. Like we're never not going to have nothing to do, right? I mean,
Right.
And a lot of women listening to this podcast or men, we do lead full lives. I mean, we are maybe leaders and we have, that aspect at our job. And then obviously a lot of us have kids, husbands, obviously there are going to be things to do. I think that's where the enemy works, right? He just puts these thoughts in our head of like, well, we can't slow down and we're always going to feel this way because we just do have a lot to do. But I think there's go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I interrupted. Go ahead.
It's fine. I just think that there's a difference between our bodies being tired, which is not a bad thing. And there's a difference between our soul being tired, which is a whole other different thing. And that's really when we're not doing what God called us to do. We're doing all these other things. And it kind of goes back to, what are you chasing? Of course, there are things that have to get done during the day, day to day, week to week, month to month, whatnot. But I think we're chasing sometimes the wrong things. And that's what gets us overwhelmed, not necessarily all the things that need to get done. We're just, day to day, taking care of our families and jobs and things.
No, and it's things that you think, and I think part of resting is having more fun. I think a lot of us forget to have fun sometimes. But on the other side of that, I think sometimes rest also means staying home instead of going to a social event.
Yeah.
Right? Just because you feel like you have to. Or, being somewhere because you feel like you have to. Like it's okay if you've had a busy week, to stay home and do nothing. Right?
Yeah.
Cook a nice dinner, watch a movie. Like, even if you have something to do, socially, I think it's harder for a lot of us to do that because, we want to go out and we want to have fun. And I think that's good. But I think Kari is the crux of the problem. Like, are you physically tired? Are you soul tired? And where is it coming from? Really?
Right.
And I feel like, sometimes the more that I get done, the more overwhelmed I feel because it just keeps piling up.
That's
and
true.
So, I have had a lot of people say to me, and these were high level people that were working 7 days a week, that they really chose to take a Sabbath, take that seventh day off. And they were getting more done in that 6 days than they felt like they were getting in 7 days because they were working from a place of rest instead of a place of overwhelm.
Right. Yeah, we are called to work from rest, not for rest. And I think that kind of goes back, it's just kind of a mentality to some degree. It's like, uh, do you really prioritize rest day to day, week to week, or are you just trying to get by until the next vacation or trying to get by until the weekend? I mean, everybody loves the weekend. Like, I get it. I like the weekend. We look forward to the weekend, but it's like, I don't feel like I'm holding on by my fingernails most weeks. Now, these past few weeks have been a little bit maybe different.
Yeah.
And some weeks are going to be different, but I think you just have to continually seek the Lord's guidance in why am I running myself crazy? Why do I feel so much more overwhelmed than I usually do? Because there are going to be weeks like that or days like that. And I think we just have to constantly almost like recalibrate. And we do that by seeking the Lord, right? He's our way of recalibration. Nothing else should be. But it's when we don't maybe take that few minutes to really, think to ourselves, what is overwhelming me? Why do I feel like this? And maybe leaning more into scripture or making the time to go and eat lunch with a trusted Christian friend that's going to point you to him and just help you to see things from a different perspective. I think it could look different, but I know that we have to have that recalibration or else we're going to get really off track.
Yeah. And I think to that point is when we do take our hands off the wheel and not knowing what it'll look like while we'll rest, right? Because there's sometimes that we do need things do need to let go of. Trusting that God calls us to rest, physically, emotionally, spiritually, knowing that he will take care of every single thing in the way that it needs to be taken care of. So I think there's some trust also in rest, knowing that
yes,
everything's going to get done the way that it needs to be done.
right.
And handled. And so, just, leaning into that trust that, God's got you covered.
Yeah, it makes me think about we can all be kind of control freak at times.
Yes.
But some of us like have a really strong grip on control. And so
Yes.
I think it's just I was just talking to my daughter about this because she really likes to plan and be in control and just have her ducks in a row, let's say. And I think a lot of women are like that. And so I said something because she was like, I don't know how to not want to do that. And as being 12, I understand that.
Right.
And I get that. And so I was really praying. I'm like, Lord, help me in this conversation because I don't know what to say. It's so hard sometimes to say how you do these things other than just pray about it, which, is what we should do. However, something popped in my mind that really helped me whenever I was trying to kind of walk through this process of not being run by my to-do list and success and all these things that I was chasing is I would wake up every morning and I would just open up my hands and say, Lord, this is your day and I want to do what you want me to do. And I want your plan over my plan, your will over my will, and your way over my way. And I did that for years. And I'm not saying I don't still need to do that. Of course, we all need, these reminders, but it became more of a habit to look at my day like that versus it being run by the things that I needed to get done. And so that is one thing that really helped me to just physically release my hands. If you're not watching the video, just, open palms, because that's what we should do with our life. And sometimes it's harder to do it maybe with the bigger things, or it might be opposite. But I think it's just that reminder of every single day, even in the little things that drive us crazy because they don't go our way, or all the things that we don't know, all the unknowns of just being like, it's not up to me, it's yours.
Right. And for sometimes it literally means, of course, we're talking about doing less, but it literally means, and I don't want you to think this doesn't mean exercise, but move less, right? The busybody where you're just bopping around the house and you're kind of putz in and you're doing from one thing to another, literally just sit down, right? Maybe listen to a song. Yeah. It's 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes. Stop thinking, because that's really where the overwhelm is coming from. Yeah. It's coming from our thoughts. And so if we can plan less, think less, on the emotional plane, and of course on the spiritual plane, worry less, right? It's a reminder to just hand it over to God. And sometimes for me, this was a big thing for me. It was a reminder to stop being who I wasn't, to lay down my striving.
Right.
because, that sometimes we could just get caught up in the striving. I think it happens to everybody.
Yeah.
But, physically stop your body, stop your mind, and that, contemplate on a worship song. And then spiritually, like, just trust, right? Which trust equals less worry.
Right. And that takes
Patriarca.
practice.
Yes, practice. Yeah.
But what were you going to say?
I was just going to say there was a Saint Padre Pio, and he said, "Pray, hope, and don't worry." And it's so simple but profound.
Yeah. And I get sometimes we don't know how to do that because we're so trained, like we've trained ourselves, in one way, like our habits and our actions have trained us, and maybe even our beliefs have trained us to do what we've been doing, which is, not sitting and constantly overthinking or trying to control or whatever. So I think sometimes when you're so far in that, it's like, how do I even get out? Right. It's going to take practice. It's going to be a daily thing. You're going to mess up, but thank goodness he gives us new mercies every single day. And we really have to live day by day. That's another thing I told my daughter, like, we're right here. She's talking about something that's not going to happen for weeks or months or sometimes even years. I'm like,
we all do it.
This is Monday. Let's be right here, and I get it. Like I'm definitely can tend to be like that. And I used to be like that a lot more, but it's just, and again, it's not the opposite of the end of the spectrum of never plan, never, think about things in the future. It's plan lightly, right? The Lord's Prayer says, according to his will, like we don't even know if we're going to be here tomorrow. So we shouldn't just make all these plans and expect that they're going to happen. Anyway, we have no control over that. And so when we realize that, I think it goes a lot better than when we think we have control and then it doesn't go our way.
Yes. And to Kari's point of practice, we want to put it into practice for you. We want to help you beat the overwhelm. And so coming up, we have a challenge for you. Kari, do you want to talk a little bit more?
Yeah. So, we're always just kind of thinking, what are we talking to clients about a lot? What are we ourselves struggling with? What are we hearing other people talk about that they struggle with? And really, when people come to us, usually it's mostly physical. But then again, with the way that the Lord has shown us how all of these things play into each other, it makes us want to, help in any way that we can. Obviously, working with people one-on-one is the primary way that we do that. But we want to challenge you to think about some of these things and how they relate to you physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. So we do want to do a challenge around just challenging you to think about what does overwhelm you and how can you take action in the day-to-day in just releasing what you maybe are trying to control that is overwhelming you. There's so many layers to this. However, we're excited to challenge you to think more. Really, a lot of this starts with paying attention, because we just go throughout our day and we don't really think about these things because maybe we're so used to operating like that. And so we kind of want to shake things up, help you to evaluate where you are, what is overwhelming you, and then give you practical ways to just, like Jenn said, do less and rest more and not worry as much and just decrease the overwhelm overall. And we didn't really talk about this a lot, but for me, a lot of this kind of goes back to I can rest well when I can kind of streamline things. Maybe what's overwhelming you is that every day for dinner, you don't know what you're going to cook and you don't know if you're going to, it's just, you don't have a plan for things. And so I think that, or maybe it could be the opposite for you. Maybe you're just like a super planner organizer and maybe you plan too much, right? Everybody's different, but we really want to give you some practical tools and challenge you in this area. So that's coming in October, the very 1st of October. We'll give you more details on that, but make sure you're a part of our email list, because that's where we're going to share this information and get you connected with the challenge. And just hopefully with everything we do, we really just want to point you to the Lord, because he's going to direct your steps and he's going to make the path clear. And so that's our ultimate goal with this challenge and with everything we do.
Yes. Yes. And if there's someone that could use this podcast, I think there's so many who, are struggling with overwhelm. Please pass this on, comment, like it, and let's get the message out about how we can do less and get more done and stop the overwhelm.
Amen. Thanks for joining us, guys. We'll see you on the next episode.